We should probably, and I haven't got to see him personally, but we need to congratulate Ben on his success in the recent trial, and thank him and his all the folks who were associated with it for their hard work.
If there's nothing else, we'll recess until Dr. Moore.
Good job.
Yeah, you guys don't know how appreciative I am of your guys' support through this. I know that there's going to be cost, and something that we discussed before this. Everything was done as economically as possible. You don't know how many people have come up to me and said, they just said you can't put a price on something like this. You can't put a price on I don't need to say justice or making sure everything is done right. But you guys, knowing that I had your support and knowing that I didn't have to worry about that when I got back, made it a lot easier. It really did, and we did the right thing. And you guys were instrumental in that. Everybody was. So. I don't know how else to thank you, allowing the assistants to take, some additional payments, for their help, which, as Rick probably knows better than anybody, Norma's kind of been the de facto county attorney for about 3 months now, and she's taken on a lot more than probably she could have ever thought. But I think these congratulations. This is a great day for the county. This isn't a great day for our office. This is a great day, for everybody. Law enforcement in this county, vindicated. So, but I just need you guys to know how much I appreciate your support through all this. It was pretty dark there for a while, I know, but we got through it. And we did the right thing, I think. So.
I had a conversation with the sheriff, and that through this whole process, we didn't, clear back in 2001, had next to no experience with anything like this, and it's a learning process for everyone, and so I think I think it's everyone learned a lot. Everybody.
Visiting with people in the community and the county. One comment that came up was, in counties such as ours, law enforcement and the county attorney's office rely, heavily on state DCI and the attorney general's office. The investigations, like you said, they don't handle a lot of it, and if the state doesn't get involved aggressively and with helping, it does have an impact on the outcome. And I think people, like Ben said, I don't think people are pointing fingers. They're just kind of glad there's been some resolution, and even no matter what happens beyond this, there's been resolution and the process has worked.
And you, as your first year and in our sheriff's department now, I think I learned a lot just listening, and I think it's been a real learning experience for everyone.
That's one of the things that, as Doug moved in, I don't know if you guys knew this or not, but we kind of overtook your office, your meeting room for an entire week, and we had everything kind of set up here. And as Doug came in, he was, Doug's, and I say Doug came in, he prosecuted about 40 some odd murders. I think he has a pretty high conviction rate, but he would point out things to me that I never thought to do. And we shored those things up, and then, we found the answers to them. The DCI learned a lot. There were certain things that could have been done in the last 10 years, and I don't know. I don't even know what to say. Like I never thought the day would come where I can go back in there and not have to start working on something on this thing. It's just I appreciate you guys understanding, although I might have come off as a bit crazy at first. It was just apparent to me, and until you actually sit through this thing, and until you actually have read everything, it made me sick to know that was still there. And I think eventually, I'd like to think, I know you guys came around and been very supportive and understanding.
Well, I think we all thought she was guilty, but we didn't know whether there was enough evidence to prove it. But we think what can be proven, and a lot of times two different things.
And that's what information we get, and through all this time was very little. And then as this thing opened up, we were reading things in the paper or seeing things that that we certainly were not aware of. And
yeah, there was. I mean, you guys. I don't know if you're aware or not. You probably are by now. But there was certain testimony that was given by a former official from this county, and I'm quite convinced that a large portion of that is not accurate, and that's per the DCI agent that he was working with. That's per audio recordings that we have in our possession, and whether there was a miscommunication or misunderstanding, I think that what is apparent is that what you guys knew about this before last year probably either. I mean, I don't think there was any intentional misleading. I just think that I don't know how to say this. I just think that there was a lot more to it than you were led to know.
well, and that's we don't get involved in those things, and we don't ask questions. That's the sheriff's and the county attorney's departments, and we learned a lot of this information through the trial.
Yeah.
Most elected officials, we have very little oversight. We have fiscal oversight, but for us to get directly involved in trying to micromanage,
No.
we just can't go there unless we think there's something grievous.
No, and I'm not trying to infer that. I'm just.
But it was out there, but it was under a lot of layers of years. And
A lot of factors, time and memory and.
Well, back then there was a lot of turnover in
Oh,
the
yeah.
county attorney's office.
Yeah.
We had a part, Pam was here, and then Dave was, you have to describe as kind of a part-time.
Interim.
And, he had a private practice, and he was busy, and it was different then. Then Earl came, and he was really the first, he wanted to be a full-time county attorney.
But then your DCI agent was ready to be retired or ready to retire. And I think that, because I know he was a good agent.
I was a great agent.
Years,
Star. I've said this the whole time. I mean, the stars aligned for this to kind of fall through the cracks. And you had turnover at the county attorney's office shortly after the incident. I don't know when Pam Devin left, but she left not too long after.
I started in the fall of 2001, and she was here just a brief time. And then we had interim of Dave, and then
Earl.
we had vacancy, and then Earl came,
And then you had the DCI agent. You had who had done everything that he could up to that point. You had the retirement of Lieutenant Sesford, who was the lead on the case. Dan Mosier, fall on 9/11, got put on some FBI task force. That just, there wasn't. Like I said, if there was a way for it to fall through, I hate to say fall through the cracks, but if there was a way for things to be, missed, or the pieces not to be put together, or, communication to drop off. I mean, that's the perfect combination.
I said,
oh yeah.
I sat there and I have trouble remembering what I did last month, let alone 10 years ago and last month. That's, for Dennis Sussford to have to go back and recall. I mean, he's been out of law enforcement for what, 7 or 8 years probably. Wow.
Is he still with MOCI?
Yeah.
That's a good organization.
So just a lot of things.
Some crimes are more, and some are more cleverly. A lot of crimes, there's the heat of passion, or there's alcohol involved, or it's members of the family. But sometimes when you have a situation like this person is pretty clever. They thought, visiting with attorneys or people.
Ben,
There's a lot of thought.
how much involvement will the Sac County Attorney's Office be? Will there be for the Sac County Attorney's Office in this retrial or appeal?
We won't have any. They might call and ask me questions about the record that was made, because that's the only thing that's up for appeal. Anything that they preserved error on for objections that were overruled and that were offered up to the court. My experience with appeals is that the county level, the Attorney General's office handles all the appeals.
Okay.
But that doesn't mean that they don't call and say, well, this doesn't make sense. What happened in this instance?
Sure.
That's will be the extent of our involvement at this point. The motion for the new trial is a standard thing. That's the first thing they ask for after a conviction. The same way that they ask for the judgment of acquittal after we rested our case. It's standard. Same thing, they renewed that same motion after the trial. Those things are all standard. But from this point forward, the Attorney General's office, appellate division, handles the criminal aspect of it. So,
and we would not have any financial participation. The only way that the only way that we could have is if we were directed to retrial. Otherwise, we're out of the loop.
Yeah. Really? Everything at this point.
Well, that's
good news.
It is.
Have you seen the motion to retry yet?
No. Have you?
No.
I don't know what it would be for. I mean, from what I understand, these are fairly standard things. The grounds. I don't know if there'd be anything specific, but who knows?
Was that sentence, is the life sentence mandatory?
Yeah.
Why did you refer that then to the Department of Corrections for case?
That's what they do.
Really?
I don't think there's any discretion in the code, or I don't think the code gives discretion for when they order a PSI when they don't. I mean, it's probably one of those things that maybe they need to change that. I don't know. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense, but at the same time,
You talked about, my wife was retired from the Department of Corrections after 28 years. We wondered about that.
There was
That happens with every single crime, though, right?
yeah,
Every
there's
single
just no
thing?
discretion. I think that automatically, like in this case, it's a Class A felony conviction. It's an automatic appeal. I mean, that goes up with whether or not she wants to. Of course, she wants to, but that's.
one question I was going to ask your opinion on. I found it somewhat bizarre that they included an option of murder 2. And my understanding of murder 2 is that is not the premeditated, pre-planned. And when I sat back and thought it over, you either planned it and did the action, which means murder 1, or you didn't do it. And I found that really strange that they threw the murder 2 possibility in the mix. Did you find that weird?
We wanted it in there. The defense counsel asked that it be taken out, and it only be murder 1 or nothing. Whether it's right or wrong, I agree 100%. You either have justification or you don't. murder one, murder two. You either have the justification defense and they find that it has merit, or they don't in that instance. But and this is just me thinking why it was a good idea to keep it in. And I mean, obviously it wasn't. I was the one only making that decision to keep that in, but oftentimes you'll have juries that may compromise. And I'm not saying that you know, their interpretation of the elements may be different than mine, but that's why they're the jury. And as long as that's there as an option, it's not, you know, maybe they could have just said, well, you know, maybe the state, you know, came close, we maybe feel some sympathy. Who knows? But as long as that's there, that's for the jury to decide. I mean, if they would have found a reason to convict on murder,
you take it.
I take it, absolutely.
But I just
you're 100% accurate. I mean, it's
about
nonsensical. I mean, if you're gonna on murder one, the elements for murder one necessarily, the justification defense would be the same for murder two.
Well, my question about that is, wouldn't it still be intent if the last 3 bullets happened 15 minutes later?
I mean, that's for the jury to decide.
But I mean, would that be a justification for murder too?
No, the justification, the defense of justification, is the elements for that defense are the same for murder one and murder two. Now, what you're asking is, you know, the jury question. A question for the jury is you know, something that if the jury did decide that, you know, that 15 minutes or there was some time lapse and that was the basis for their verdict. I don't know whether that had anything to do with it or not, but that intent element changes in murder two. It was a specific intent in murder one, meaning you specifically intended that this person die. Murder two, this general intent, where you didn't, in your mind, you didn't necessarily form that. It's a complicated. I tell you what, I didn't even understand the difference between specific and general until I was out of law school. I mean, it's very complicated.
My thought of it was premeditated or not premeditated. The difference between one and two.
It's the mental state. You you form that intent in your mind before you did the act. The other one doesn't require that. You're exactly right. So why that's in there? They wanted to compromise. If they would have found me, that's 50-year mandatory. Forcible felony, 75%. The other shit is about 37, 38 years. But we didn't have to go down there,
So if somebody wants to write a book,
don't come talk to me. I'm out. I'm done. This is.
No, I just wondered how that. I think a lot of people think there's a good chance there might be something done with it.
Well, they got something I was going to float by the board. It didn't necessarily have to be today or tomorrow, but I know that Sac County, a lot of members, probably a fairly significant percentage of people in Sac County are members of the NRA. Maybe not. I'm just guessing based on or the demographics, but I know that the NRA gave a sizable amount of money to Tracy for her civil defense, and I'm going to ask them that they match that for our coffers. They gave it to her without even reading her story. They read her story and they bought it or whatever. But I think it's a show of goodwill. I think that's something that I will be asking for, maybe, and have the board sign off on that. And they can tell us to go pound sand. But I think that's that might be something that can help alleviate. Maybe. It's something to think about, I guess. I don't know how much she was given in the wrongful death. I've only heard just secondhand from
that was dismissed, though, right? That didn't ever go forward.
It got dismissed. Whoever you want to believe, I personally think, and I know based upon what the plaintiffs, the estate dismissed because she had no money. I mean, she's absolutely judgment-proof. So if you win nothing. And B, the plaintiff's attorney was owed legal fees that he kind of taken upon himself and went into debt to get the facts. To get and probably the most frustrating thing about Earl's testimony
was Earl testified that he was kind of sitting on the sidelines waiting for the results of the civil litigation, you know, to hopefully provide some answers. It did. He didn't look for it. There was 3 statements she gave, 2 of which were under oath, that completely contradicted one another. They're public record. They're in the court file. It wasn't a secret. So for him to say that he sat there and you know, was waiting for the results is just ludicrous. You know, but I mean, I'll get over that. You know, get past that. But
Okay, thank you.
yep, no, I appreciate
Thank
it.
you.
If you guys need anything, any questions, ask me. I don't. Start to do some county attorney stuff.